living with disability. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Dr. Amo, both of you. I know that it takes immense amount of courage. You have triumphed, both of you, on your journeys. So I'm going to start with, firstly with you, Amit. Just a little bit of introduction into how you have turned something that can have negative connotations, something that we all struggle to understand, particularly in the South Asian community, and how you've now become a keynote speaker.
Thank you for that introduction, and thank you to Asian Lifestyle for speaking about such an important topic which isn't really spoken about. So my name's Amit Ghose. I was born with a rare condition called neurofibromatosis, which a lot of people cannot even pronounce, let alone understand what it's like growing up with it. Throughout school, I was lonely, I was going through depression and anxiety, but at that age, you don't really know what depression and anxiety is. But I didn't want to be in school. I didn't want to be around children because they were scared, they were curious. I used to really fear PE because every PE lesson, the PE teacher would say, pair up with somebody, and I'd be left alone because no one would want to pair up with me. And then the embarrassing moment when the PE teacher would have to nominate someone, or the PE teacher himself would join me. But as every child, I had hobbies, I had likes, and one of the things that I really enjoyed was playing cricket. And one of my greatest strengths, my dad, my father, bought me a cricket ball and a cricket bat, and I used to play cricket by myself at home. I'd put the stumps up by the wall and I'd bowl to the wall every day. And I still remember a lot of my relatives and cousins would come and tell my dad, oh, why are you letting him play cricket? He's already got this condition. What if he gets injured? What if what if he breaks him even more? But he said, if my son wants to play cricket, he wants to play cricket. And that's what really gave me the strength and resilience and normality to be who I am today and get that strength to embrace my personality. And whenever I do come and talk in keynotes and I talk to children in schools, I talk about how you need to embrace your personality, how you need to embrace who you are. Because once you start opening up, people recognize you for who you are. The audience sitting here today, when I sat down, you may have noticed my looks, my condition for the first few moments, but now that I've started speaking to you, you're like, oh yeah, this is Amit, the guy who likes cricket or who enjoyed playing sports. So that's the journey, and that's what's got me to where I am, and we'll dig a little bit deeper as we keep speaking. But yeah, this is who I am. Thank you very much.
Well, Amit, very well said. So absolutely, there is so much more. Yes, let's have a round of applause. What wonderful, inspiring words there. There is so much more to us than the disability that is either visible or invisible. We're going to come back to you, Amit. Also want to welcome Amo. Amo, you're the CEO of Disability Direct. Now, what inspired you to lead an organization that's dedicated to supporting individuals that have disabilities, and what kind of services and programs does the organization provide?
Thanks, Susie. So, the scary thing is I've been doing my job now for 30 years. And in 30 years, you would have think things have improved for disabled people. And I can, hand on heart, say categorically, they've actually gone worse. And the main thing that's still the hot issue for me is the attitude of society. You can put ramps into buildings, you can have all types of equipment to make the lives of disabled people better. But what lets disabled people down, and I'm including myself in this, is the attitude of the people around me. My own story, Amit and I connected a few days earlier, and what struck me was how our stories were very similar, even though they're slightly, decades apart. He's a lot younger than me. But that also frightened me that things have not got better for the Asian community. And my biggest challenge was my relationship with the Asian community and their reaction to me and my counter-reaction to them, which you can all read about in my book, Walk Like a Man. There's a stand over there. Do not miss it. I'm not going to let you walk past without buying a book. But your question about the services are still the same. for disabled people still need benefit support. They still need social care support. And they need even more social care support than they ever did because the budgets aren't there. Disabled people need care, but the government hasn't got the money to give them care. And in our community, in the Asian community, there's still an expectation that we look after our own. And unfortunately, that isn't the case. And it's not because the Asian community doesn't care about disabled people. It's because, like every other community, they got to go out and work as well. Carers have a life as well. And that often gets overlooked. So the charity that I run is still doing the same things it did 30 years ago. And alarmingly, the demand is even higher.
Wow, so the demand is growing, but both of you have had support from family and friends, and albeit probably wasn't there from the onset, Amit, like you said, a lot of assumptions come with disabilities, lots of bullying associated, and that really just boils down to a lack of education, let's be honest. What advice would you give, and how can we promote better conversations to understand? Like you said, many people can't even pronounce your condition. Cerebral palsy, even AMO, is something that a lot of people don't know at the core of it. What is it? What does it prevent you from doing? So how can we promote these conversations in our inner circles? We go to the gurdwaras, we go to the temples, we're strong as a community, but we shy away from having difficult conversations.
I think it starts with breaking down the barriers, breaking down the fear. People fear of saying the wrong thing. It's not that you're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to learn. If we're having these conversations, you're only going to learn. You're only going to get a better understanding. And don't make assumptions. I've had people assuming that I can't speak. I've had someone do sign language to me before. And I'm like, I can talk. Just say hello to me. Come and speak to me. On one of my TikTok videos, I spoke about how people stare at me at a train station and will just stare at me for ages thinking, what's wrong with this person? And then sometimes I go up to them and say hello and have a conversation and tell them about my condition. And what that does is next time they see someone who is quote unquote different, they'll probably just give them a smile. So it's about having that open dialogue, breaking down those fears and barriers for me.
Amo, I know it's taken a while I think for both of you, like I said, got to admire your courage, your resilience in the face of adversity to now have these conversations in front of audiences with efforts to educate everyone. But it's not been that easy, has it, Amo? Now, for years, you've hidden it. What is it? What was the turning point? What were those pivotal moments of realization where you thought, I've got to speak to somebody? And it's never been easy for men, is it? Let's be honest. We raise men not to cry, not to show their emotion, be strong. So what was the tipping point for you?
So, just to add a bit more context to that, I went through 30 years of depression and therapy, and nobody knew about it. Not even my wife, not my children, my brother, sister, my parents. I just used to disappear for a while, come back feeling slightly better, and then I'd be down again. And the turning point for me, there's two things that happened. The first thing was that I recognized I need to talk. I need help. But my immediate reaction was I need antidepressants. That's going to fix me. And so when I went to the GP said, no, you're not having antidepressants. I'm going to get you 6 therapy sessions on the NHS. You won't get that now. Well, I'm going back 30 years. I had 6 therapy sessions, which ended up being 30 years of therapy sessions. To this day, I haven't taken a single antidepressant because I've been able to talk. And that's what I say to men, whether you're disabled or not. You need to talk. And there's something I've written in the book, which I've mentioned I've written a book, by the way. There's something I've written in the book which I say men are terrible at talking about their feelings. And I'm not being sexist, but when women get together, you're within seconds, you're offloading. You're saying, this is what's annoying me. Guess what's happened to me? Men, we want to talk about how much beer we drank, what the cricket was like, or who got into a fight last week. That seems to be the macho conversation. But why can't we start a conversation with, guess what's pissing me off? Guess what's annoying me? And before you realize it, you started talking about something that's on your mind. And before you realize it even further, your friends giving their thoughts about what's annoying them as well. And that's what we need to be get better at. And I'll go one step further for me as a disabled person. The second point, after 30 years of therapy, and you'll find out about it, it's in the book. The turning point was when I realized I need to own my disability. I can't hide away from it. I've got cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy does not have me. I had to get that in my head. And once that clicked with me, that's when I started getting, right, get me a microphone, get me on stage. And I literally, for the last 2 years, all I've been doing is this kind of stuff. And it's great because when we own the conversation, we can control the narrative about what's being written about us, what's being written about disabled people, what's being written about disability. And for me personally, what's being written about Asian disabled people, because there's a minority within a minority there. And nobody's talking on our behalf. When I was growing up, I didn't see any disabled people on the TV, but I didn't even see any Asian people on the TV. So I had no one to look up to. And any Asian disabled people on the TV, forget about it. It wasn't going to happen. So the likes of Amit now, I'm so happy that this guy's from the next generation who's grabbed the microphone and saying, I'm disabled, I'm proud, come and talk to me. And we need more of that. Because I'm a bit of an old fart now, so I'm running out of steam. But this guy needs to carry it on, and that's what's needed.
Absolutely. Owning your story is so, so important. Amit, how can we promote better understanding and for people to be able to support invisible and visible disabilities? What would you say are some common challenges that people are facing? Why are we not having more of these conversations?
I think one of the biggest challenges is acceptance. For me, growing up, graduating, getting a job, being successful, what happens when we get a job in an Asian culture, get a degree, marriage comes up. And around marriage, for me, there was so much taboo. Like, I'd go to weddings and an auntie would come up to me and say, oh, so when are you going to get married? And suddenly they would pause and they'd be like, oh God, how is he going to get married? How is he going to find a wife? Because if you think about Indian arranged marriages, it's a bit like virtual Tinder, isn't it? You know, you're exchanging photographs. And my photographs weren't very much well received. But through some serendipity, I met my beautiful wife who's sitting in the front row here, and she taught me something very, very beautiful, which has stuck with me and has been one of my pivotal moments. You asked about pivotal moments a bit earlier. When we were speaking, she was in India, I was in England, and we'd be talking on video call, and I'd always hold my phone on the right side of my face. And if you go to my Instagram or any of my social media and look at any of my photographs from before 7 months ago, you'd see they're all from the right-hand side of my face, because I hadn't truly accepted my condition. I truly hadn't accepted the way I look. Even though I embraced my personality and had some great friends and drank, you know, gone out and did all the things that Amo said men do, but I hadn't truly accepted the way I look. And she one day said to me when I'm talking to her, holding the phone on the right-hand side of my face, said, if I'm going to get married to you, I'm not going to marry half of your face. I'm going to marry all of you. So stop showing me half of your face and, you know, own it. And that was the moment I realized that actually I haven't even truly accepted who I am. So how can I expect society, community, people to accept me? And that was the moment that was a turning point for me, that got me thinking that actually we need to accept ourselves first before people can accept us. Whenever I go into like a college or a university and do a talk, I ask the students, how many of you here have an Instagram account? Now you guys think about it, how many of you have a social media account? Do you post photos on there? Do you go back after half an hour to see how many likes you've got? Do you compare those likes to somebody else? Do you feel slightly upset or dejected when you haven't got enough likes? Why are we constantly seeking validation externally? When was the last time we got up, looked in the mirror, and said, actually, I am good enough, I've got this, I can make it happen? So before we can go to the community, before we can go to society, before we can go externally, we have to start internally. And that was the journey my wife helped me go on, and that's where it all kind of started for me. So before we go to community and everything, has to be the self for me.
Wow, really good points there. I mean, do you know, when you were talking about Instagram and, you know, taking pictures that we take over and over again, or we pick a side, don't we? Oh, this is my good side. This is my bad side. Oh, let me put a filter on because I'm going to look a lot better with a filter. So yeah, on that individual level, I think there's a lot that we need to start accepting. Only then we can change mindset. And it's your change mindset that has brought love into your life. What a beautiful human your wife is. Amo, talking, having these conversations, also part of the healing process, as we know. It can be a source of healing. You have mentioned your book, Walk Like a Man. What has been the impact of writing and sharing? Conversations we can have, this is a entirely different process where you're having to relive, let's be honest, right? Excerpts. You're bearing all. It's all there in its raw form. How was that process?
That's a really good question. The reason we wrote the book, and I wrote, say we, it was Manny sitting on the front row. I contacted her about 4 or 5 days after lockdown, and I said, right, we're writing a book. I'd never met her before, and I'd written the first 6 chapters, and I ran out of steam. And I said, right, I need somebody professional to do this. So the reason people said to me, there's a book inside me, and I think everybody in this room has got a book inside them. But my story was, I'm an ex-Bhangra singer. Some of you will probably still hear my song. It gets played on the dance floor, Babbi Aklarige by True School. I recorded that one in 2007. And I'm an ex-politician, a cabinet member. I'm a CEO of a multi-million-pound organization. And people said those kind of things don't happen to the average person, let alone to disabled people. So your story needs to be out there. But the main thing I had to do first, as we've just talked about, is about owning the situation. And I thought, if I'm going to write a book, I have to tell my family that I've been in counseling for 30 years because it's going to come out in the book. And so I did that. But to write a book, you have to be honest if you're going to write a book about yourself. And I, on a weekly basis on Zoom, because we were in lockdown, Manny and I would have a conversation. Manny would say, right, what happened then? And then I'd say, okay, right, so A, B, C, D, a long list of scenarios. And each week, it was like another set of therapy sessions. Manny took on the role of the counselor, the therapist in my book. And I told Manny after we wrote it, I said, after each session, there were times when I broke down and cried because I had to relive the whole thing again that I didn't want to think about. But again, that was a healing process for me because I accepted that this had happened. And I thought, right, it's going to go out in the public domain. And the impact for me, what really made it worth it for me was as soon as the book was published, within weeks, and I still get this, I just had another email day before yes. On a weekly basis, I'm getting emails or messages through social media from disabled people across the UK saying, what you went through in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we're going through now. And you've given us hope. Or I get parents of disabled children saying, we now don't feel so rotten. We think there's hope for our child. What you can achieve or have achieved, our child may achieve. And so it's what the book has done is given a whole generation hope. Remember, like I said earlier, I didn't have any role models to look up to. And the likes of Amit, myself, and there's some other fantastic disabled people that are really making some noise out there. You know, what they've got, I said, everybody's got a book in them, and they're all saying stuff about their own experiences now, which are beginning to resonate with individuals. And for me, that's the most powerful thing. Not about, you know, millions of sales of copies. It's more about the fact that I can go places, and even today, there are people that have come up to me and said, I've already read your book. And that's a nice thing. And so that shows you that there are people thinking, oh, the fact that we are here today on a stage, on the Asian lifestyle event, talking about disability, you know, that's something that wouldn't happen normally. You can go to all of these exhibitions, and where have you seen disability being discussed? unless it's a disability exhibition, you don't get it in a general lifestyle exhibition. So we are making some progress as a society, small steps in the right direction, but some progress.
And there's something tangible out there as well, Amo, as a result. And I think that's so important because going back to what you said, growing up, you didn't see anybody who looked quite like you in the public domain. Amit, what advice would you give to individuals who are living with disability, but they haven't quite plucked that same level of courage? They're not quite there yet. What sorts of inspiration could you give them?
I think the main thing is own it, like Dr. Amo said, but also share it, talk about it. Because once I opened up about it and started talking about it, beautiful things started to happen. I mean, I started my first TikTok video, which got over 100,000 views within the first 24 hours. And my intention was, if I can inspire one person from my videos, I'll feel as if I've been a success. And I'll tell you a really short story. Within 2 weeks of doing that, a wonderful lady from South Africa sent me a message. She's a young lady who said to me, I've got the same condition as you, but I've got it on my thighs. And I really enjoy swimming, but I can't go swimming. And I asked her, why is that? She said, well, people will see my tumors, people will see my scars, and I fear my friends won't treat me the same way. And all I said to her was, would you want people around you who judge you for a few scars? If you were able-bodied and didn't have these scars and suddenly had an accident, would your friends leave you? And she said thank you and went about her day, and I thought that was it. But 2 weeks after, she came back, and she sent me a screenshot of her Facebook profile. And it was a picture of her wearing a swimming suit, and in the status it said, I have neurofibromatosis, and I'm proud. And it turned out her supervisor also had the same condition. And just by her opening up to the world, it turned out she had support networks around her that she didn't even know about. So the main advice would be open up, accept it, like I said before, but open up as well, because your story could inspire somebody else, and that will be currency for you. When people message me now saying, your story has really inspired me or moved me, that's almost currency for me. I get really excited. I'll show my wife, I'll show my friends. I'll be like, this is the impact my story has had. Each time I do a talk, if one person can walk out of that room moved or inspired, that's success for me. That's the moral for me.
Thank you for that, Amit. Amo, where do we go from here with Disability Direct? Where else do you feel that we could have more of these conversations? I touched on Gurdwara earlier on, where we do have a captive audience, or the temple. Are there any initiatives or something that you're passionate about pursuing that we as a community can really get behind so that we can change the narrative?
Oh, I really wish you hadn't mentioned that. Look, there's so much work to be done when it comes to disability and religion. You have to really kind of be careful because you're going to upset some people. Let me give you a short story. My daughter got married 6 years ago in a Gurdwara, and the temple priest decided that I wasn't, because I can't sit on the floor, that I wasn't able to, though I wasn't going to be allowed in the main hall. I had to sit outside. And I said, you're going to tell me that on my daughter's wedding, I'm sitting outside. And I had to kick off a little bit, and I didn't make some noise, so I went and parked myself on stage. I said, if you guys can sit on the stage, I can sit on the stage. I'm not disrespecting anything. Long story short, that same Gurdwara now has got chairs in the back or at the side. But it takes somebody to make that challenge. And that's the big thing that needs to happen, whether it's a Gurdwara, whether it's a mosque, whether it's a mandir or a church, wherever, you have to challenge negative, backwards thinking. Unless there's a real reason why you can't do it, you have to challenge the situation. Now, the other thing I'm doing with my charity now, I went to India, to the Punjab in March, and what clicked with me is, had my parents not come to this country, what would my life be like as a disabled person? I know I wouldn't have been doing this. I wouldn't have had the success because the attitude over there is medieval. So I made some small donations. For a few £1,000s, I bought 15 wheelchairs and handbikes. And so now what I'm doing, every year I'm going to go. I've started my appeal again. I've set up a charity now that's going to be supporting disabled people in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Because, no matter how successful or not successful those countries become, they will never address the inequality of disabled people because it's just not in their thinking. So that's one of my little missions. I'm not going to change the world on it, but hopefully I'm going to change a few ideas and thinking.
I love that. Yes, we've all got to have those difficult conversations, challenge something that doesn't quite sit right. Amit, it's all about education, educating us as adults, but also the future generations. Let's be honest, how we have these conversations with our children about acceptance. And we know in schools it's very common. There's lots of bullying. There's lack of understanding. Schools themselves are perhaps not quite there yet with taking responsibility to talk about diversity, to talk about the stigma and the taboos and have these open assembly conversations. What advice would you give to parents here? What are some of the conversations that we can have behind closed doors with our children?
I can only talk from personal experience and how my parents brought me up. It's normalizing it, not treating them differently. Include them in activities wherever possible, include them in conversations wherever possible. If my father didn't let me play cricket when I wanted to play cricket, I would have felt as if I'm different. I would have felt I'm something else and I need to be sugar-coated. Because he gave me that freedom to really express myself and be who I wanted to be, it allowed me to become who I want to become. So any parent bringing up their children, I get a lot of parents asking me this, how do I deal with it? Let the child discover himself or herself, let them be who they want to be, but also let them ask questions so they can learn. I go to a lot of schools now and I speak about being different. When those children head out to the real world, they're going to see people of various differences, disabilities, and they need to embrace that. They need to celebrate that, because at the end of the day, the takeaway message from this is that we're all human. And we all have personalities, we all have likes, we all have our favorite Netflix series. We all have things we enjoy. And that's what makes us who we are. And that's what it should be about.
Thank you. Thank you ever so much. Amo, I know you are at a stand. Manny is there. And so is Walk Like a Man, the book. So that is available to purchase today as well. And also have an extended conversation with yourself. Amit, you sticking around for a bit?
Yes, I'll be around you.
Yep. Well, I just want to say a huge, huge thank you to you both. Thank you for empowering us, for sharing, difficult conversations, something very, very personal, your own perspective of your journey. Sorry, did you want to say something? I was just
going to say one point. I want the crowd to give an appreciation to Asian Lifestyle for letting us talk. I think that is amazing. No one's ever done that before for disabled people. So round of applause to Asian Lifestyle. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And ladies and gents, a round of applause for Amo and Amit. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.